I had never thought about it. I mean, I've said it. I never lie to you about my core beliefs, certainly, and I haven't changed them. And I've not misled anybody about them. That's absolutely true, but I've never thought about it the way she put it. But that is a high compliment. And it's something that she perceived. She can't possibly know that, so that's quite a testament. I really, it made me speechless. That doesn't happen very often. Anyway, folks, welcome back. I want to share with you this piece. I found it. I was referring to it earlier in the Wall Street Journal by a guy named Bret Stephens. It's called The Marvel of American Resilience. And let me just give you a pull quote near the end of the piece so you'll know where it's building to. We are larger than our leaders. We are better than our politics. We are wiser than our culture, and we are smarter than our ideas. Enjoy the holiday. Now, here's how it begins. Imagine an economic historian in 2050 talking to her students about the most consequential innovations of the early 21st century, the Model Ts, the Wright Flyers, the penicillins of our time. What would make her list? What would be on the list of the most consequential innovations of now, the early 21st century? And there's not an iPhone on the list, and there's not an iPad on the list, and there's not an app on the list. First thing here would be fracking. Shorthand for the combination of horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing that is making America the world's leading oil and gas producer. Surely, fracking would be noted. Surely social media, the bane of autocrats like Turkey's president and of parents like me, would also get a mention. Maybe mobile apps, yeah. The emerging science of cancer immunotherapy. Hopefully, with fingers crossed, that will be on the list in 2050 as a great American initiative and innovation. And after drawing up this list, our historian would then observe that each innovation had made in USA stamped all over it. How strange, she might say, that so many Americans of the day spent so much of their time bellyaching about the wretched state of their schools, the paralyzed nature of their politics, their mounting fiscal burdens, and the predictions of impending decline. Perhaps because I grew up as an American living abroad, I've always been struck by the disconnect between American achievement and American self-perception. And to this day, I find it slightly amazing that in the U.S., I can drink water straight from a tap, that a policeman has never asked me for a contribution, that my luggage has never been stolen, that nobody gets kidnapped for ransom, that Mao-esque political purges are conducted only in the editorials of the New York Times. Try saying the same thing about everyday life in Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the so-called BRICS countries, anointed by a Goldman Sachs guru as the economies of the future. But they're not. We are. But back to our future historian. Why, she might ask her students, did the U.S. dominate its peers when it came to all the really big innovations? Now, this is where it gets interesting here, folks. Well, fracking would make a great case study. The fracking revolution happened in the U.S., not because of any great advantage in geology. China, Argentina, and Algeria each has larger recoverable shale gas reserves than we do. And it didn't happen because America's big energy companies are uniquely skilled or smart or deep-pocketed. Take a look at ExxonMobil's 2004 annual report. You'll barely find a mention of fracturing or horizontal drilling. Nor finally did it happen because enlightened mandarins in the federal bureaucracy and national laboratories were peering around the corners of the future. Nope. Instead, fracking happened in America precisely because America is America. And that is because Americans, almost uniquely in the world, have property rights. They have property rights to the minerals under their yards. And because the federal government wasn't really paying attention, and because federalism allows states to do their own thing, And because the against-the-grain entrepreneurs like George Mitchell and Harold Hamm could not be made to bow to the consensus of experts who said this stuff would destroy, would pollute, and wouldn't work. They did it anyway. And because our deep capital markets were willing to bet against the experts and go with the entrepreneur. So he's describing American exceptionalism here. He's describing American uniqueness. Property rights made it worthwhile for somebody to tear up their backyard and see what was underneath, and when they learned what was there, to go for it. They owned the property. They had the ability to do it. It doesn't happen too many other places in the world. My Wall Street Journal colleague Gary Zuckerman, author of The Frackers, when I talk to foreigners, they're even more impressed than many Americans by this renaissance. They understand it could only have happened in America. Isn't it interesting that you have nothing in your newspaper or your daily news digest about any of this? Have you seen what the unemployment rate is in North Dakota? Have you seen what the economic output in North Dakota? Have you seen the boom? Do you know that they do not have enough housing yet for all the employees moving there to work? You don't hear a word about it. You don't hear a word about fracking other than how it's destroying the planet, going to cause an earthquake or what have you. But you don't hear any of the upbeat, positive, optimism. Fracturing is largely to explain the falling oil price. The Saudis are scared to death. Well, wait, not so much the Saudis, but the rest of OPEC is scared to death. And so they are trying to get the price of oil down to put the frackers out of business. After all, competition, it's bloody in the free market, folks. It's designed to be. And so here's a guy noting something uniquely, genuinely American that's happening without government even noticing, much less being involved. It's happening because of things that are uniquely American. If it can happen here, it can happen in any number of places, and usually does. Despite all the bickering, despite all the pessimism, despite all the arguments, the people in North Dakota are not paying attention to any of that. They've got fracking going on. That was a fascinating take. And it's the kind of thing that is much needed. People need a dose of optimism. They need a dose of positive reinforcement. And more than that, people need to hear the evidence that America can be and still is the America they've always known. And in parts of the country, it is. And if it is in parts of the country, it can be everywhere again. Or we can certainly reclaim a lot of ground we have perceived to have lost. Be right back. Don't go away. And Brett Stevens makes the point that fracking is just one thing, one industry. There will be many more. He says innovation depends less on developing specific ideas than it does on creating broad spaces. Autocracies, dictators can always cultivate their chess champions, their piano prodigies, their nuclear engineers. They can always mobilize their top 1% to do something. But what do they do with the remaining 99% of their population? That's where they have no answer, other than to administer, dictate, and repress. But a free society willing to place millions of small bets on people unknown and things unseen doesn't have this problem. Flexibility is its true test of strength. Success is a result of experiment, not design. Failure is tolerable to the extent that adaptation is possible. And this is the American secret. It's the American secret we often forget because we can't imagine it any other way. It's why we're slightly shocked to find ourselves coming out ahead, even or especially when our presidents are feckless and our policies foolish. Americans and America still triumphs. But we often forget it because we're in the midst of it, and we just expect it because we're Americans. But this guy was an American growing up overseas, and he didn't live it. He watched it from afar. He concludes we're larger than our leaders. We are better than our politics. We are wiser than our culture, and we are smarter than our ideas. So enjoy the holiday and have faith in your fellow citizens. Have faith in entrepreneurism. Have faith in freedom, because it is the nature of triumph. Knowing full well there are all-out assaults on it, but some people pay no attention and just keep exercising their freedom and just keep plugging away. And that's the lesson for all of us. Just like I always say, if they're going to have a recession, don't participate. If they're going to have a bad down economy, if they're going to do this, don't participate. Live your life. Be above it. You can.